Hey there, as promised I'm going to start bringing in all the objects that we've created so far into Unity now, and you can see this looks slightly different than it did before. I have been doing some things to it, adding some objects, and I've got some post-processing going on, but don't worry about any of that. I'm going to show you how all that works. I'm not going to leave anything out, so even though you might see it in here, it's because I'm sort of testing and experimenting before I get to the lecture, so it's all ready for you guys when you get to that point. So you can see I'll just go through what I have added to this based on previous lectures and stuff that we've already done. So if I click play here, okay, so the first thing I've added is more foliage. So like I said to you, in the foliage sections, create your own plants. You create more varieties. So I added some tall ones there, and like I said before, this will be in the pack. All these plants and things will be in the pack, so you'll get them, but you need to create your own really. I've added some nice sort of flowers. It really breaks up. You can see it really sort of breaks up the scenery, and works really well. So some yellow flowery plants and some white ones. And I've added some branches on the floor, although I've got to go back and do those. I'm not quite happy with the texture that's on them, so I want to go back and do that. And like I said, I've got some post-processing going on in here. You can see I've got some ambient occlusion. This is screen space ambient occlusion, but like I said, I'm going to show you all of this when we get to that point in the next section, so don't worry about it. So what the focus of this lecture is going to be is we're bringing in the objects we've already created. Everything here is still the same pretty much, but you'd be surprised. I've painted more foliage on the ground, some more grass like I told you to, so I've started adding some more detail, bits and pieces here and there. Yeah, these twigs and that are just too dark. It's just something that I've noticed from Substance. They seem to come across quite dark, so if you get that, I'm going to investigate it and come up with a solution for that by the time we've finished. So yeah, and that's it. And the other thing I've started doing is, I mentioned I had a rock texture in my terrain. Well, I've started painting that rock around the edge now to replace the big boulders that we were going to place, and this works really well, actually, better than I was expecting. So you can see it's starting to look a bit more like a wall surrounding my environment, which is what you want. Basically, you want a natural barrier, and that kind of does it. But there's still plenty more work to do on this for it to bring it up to scratch. So not to worry. All these trees need replacing. I've done another tree, by the way. I've done a pine tree in exactly the same way as we did this one. I've done a pine tree, so I'm going to place that now as well, so you can see that. So let's place some of these objects that we've created and go from there. So what I'm going to do is bring in, hopefully you've saved them in here. So let's just bring in the axe. I've already set up some of the materials for these, so we can just drop them in. So we can just drop this axe in place. That looks pretty big, actually. That looks too big. It's quite possibly it is way too big. Okay, well, we'll come back to that. So there's the axe in place, the high definition one. And if we go into our texture mat, we've got our axe somewhere. Axe, there it is, our material which we already set up. So I can just drag that onto there, and it should be correct. Just rotate it so you can get a good view of it. You see what I mean by this? I think this axe could do with reducing. It's quite a big, when we come to optimizing, this is probably something we will look at. But there we go. There's our axe in place. Looks pretty good. Let's just play that and have a quick look at it. Yeah, looks nice. Looks cool. In fact, it's hard to see the detail. I don't think we need 2K texture on that, but that's something we're going to investigate when we come to do our optimization. And you can't see the blood on the blade, but you know, we're going to have blood all over the stump. You know, maybe quite red on the top, maybe have some dribbling down on the bark once we've done it, and you know, just to complement the blood smear on the hands on the handle there. Yeah, so that's the first object. So let's bring in the hut now and have a look at that. Let me just go to mine. So there's my hut. So make sure your rotation is correct so you can see it, you know, correctly in your viewer. And you can see it down here. Okay, so we bring this in and we want it in roughly, well, in the same place as our white box version there. So if we drag it in, whew, it's big. We have to rotate it around. And remember, our hut is in two separate pieces, our white box. But we didn't do that with this one, the high poly one. It's all in one piece, although it's separated, and I'll show you in a minute. Each component is actually separate within Unity. But okay, so just position that. Let me just, right, we can use the steps as a guide, so we can delete the big piece of that white box. So we can get it in roughly the right position. Okay, so we've got it in roughly the right place. Let's get rid of our white box here. And let's now position this a little bit better so we can just get it right. Let's just turn it slightly. I think it needs to come, well, it certainly needs to go down a bit because it's not in the ground. It's on the ground. There we go. Just pull it over a little bit. Yeah, I think that's good. I think that's a good position for it to be in. Yeah, I want this to be slightly in the ground, this chimney. And you can tell when it's in the ground because it goes that sort of colour. So just pull it down slightly until it's in the ground, but don't make sure your first step here is not submerged, which it isn't. That's good. So that's about right, I'd say. That is pretty good. Okay, so there's our hut in position with lovely colours all over it. Okay, so our hut's in, and you can see it here above our axe. If we just drop it down, you can see all the pieces do come in as individual objects, and we can use those to apply our textures to. So if we go into texture map, in fact I've set up some of these already. There's the hut walls. So if I go into my hut, find the main hut walls, that's that interior, is that exterior? That's exterior. Okay, so if I let me just check. Yep, okay. So to put on our hut walls material, we just grab it and we actually drag it onto our object like this, and you can see it gets replaced. Hut walls down here. Green one is still down. We can change that color just so it doesn't look too hideous. This one is these down here, I believe. Yeah, so that's the corners. We want to just take that down just so it sort of blends in a bit more with what we're trying to do here, rather than it being hideous. And you can see we applied it to the interior as well, because I'm moving that around. You can see, which is fine because you're not going to see the interior anyway. So Let's just bring that down to sort of a greyish brown, sort of yellowy thing down there. For now, it doesn't really matter what that is because we've got our material. But you can see now our wood's working really well. It looks, see, this is what I was saying to you before. It almost looks too good. It looks too clean for starters. So we need to take this into Photoshop and dirty it up. And for me, it looks a bit red. It looks too like it's got too much red in it. So I'd like it a bit more bleached out. So it looks a bit more weathered than it does there. But it's, you know, it's a lovely texture from textures.com. So this is one of theirs, as you know, and yeah, really good. Okay, we've got to delete the white box door so we can get rid of that. And I'm sure the frame is probably in there as well. Was that part of the? No, that was part of the. That was part of the actual model. So, but the door here is separate. You can see somewhere in here, door. Frame and door. There you go. And we're going to animate that later. So creaking open and shut. Okay, so let's move on. Let's walls, and that looks pretty good. But we're going to make some changes and make it a bit more dirty, a bit more beaten up, because it's been out here for a while, and that looks very clean, although a really nice texture. So now we're going to do the window. Now I've got the window here already. I exported all these textures from Substance and created my material in here already. And you know how to do that. You know, your albedo, your metallic, your normal map, etc. You know how to add all these. So go ahead and do that. And not on the wall. Make sure it gets on the window. And there it is. That's the wood, at least. Which is nice. Looks. I was looking at it before, and I think I might, you know, when we come back to doing our sort of a pass over, and we're going to look at it and make some notes and make some changes. I think this might need to be a higher res. We can increase the texture size, so it's going to be an exercise of looking at our UVs, seeing how they're spaced out, seeing if we can crunch them tighter so we can expand them and have more resolution on our maps. And one way we're going to do that is by taking out the interior. We don't need this in here really, because if we come back in another lecture, in another course, and do the interior, which I'm planning on doing, I will separate the interior from the exterior, and we'll have a separate material and textures for the interior. So we've got that space we can play with and make this a much higher resolution. So that is something I'll be looking at later. Let's get the glass on. So here's the glass, and here's the hut glass. Let's drop that in, and there we go. There's our hut glass. Looks pretty good. Just get rid of these orange lines because it's quite distracting. There it is. Wow. It works really well. Let's just have a look at that, because I found it quite fiddly to get right, actually. Yeah, let's see, the glass is where it looks like it's flipped the wrong way, so I'm going to investigate. I noticed this before. Can you see how this is shiny? Do you remember on the terrain we had to flip the roughness? Well, I think the same has happened here. It's you know, those shiny bits that you can see in the window up here are supposed to be dull, and the glass is supposed to be shiny. So something has gone wrong there. It's inverted, and it shouldn't have done that. But apart from that, it looks pretty good. So we'll investigate that together, because these are the sort of problems you'll come up against as an artist. You know, you need to solve these problems, and we'll look at that together and see what's causing that. and fix it, basically, because I don't want that. I don't want my dirt to be shiny in my glass, not to be, because it just looks wrong. So we'll look at that. But apart from that, generally it looks pretty good. As a window, dirty old window. Yes. And you can see the sort of shadows are working quite nicely. Through the window. And when we get our it's kind of a bit weird. Okay, so when we get our the rest of our balcony here down, veranda, whatever you want to call it, and spread along there, then that will really come to life. So there we go. Oh, and the chimney. We had the chimney here, didn't we? Chimney, there it is. We can drop that on. There you go. So I wasn't, after I did this, I wasn't that happy. That is one we're going to change later, because it's okay, but I think we can do better. I think we can do much better than that. But again, like I say, we can come back and we can work at it. And it looks kind of all a bit disjointed at the moment, because we've got this red in here and we've got nothing on the top, and green here, and so don't worry about that too much. And the dark brown for the door and door frame, once these are all textured and balanced out, it'll start to blend together, so don't worry about that too much. So let's go and have a run around and see what that looks like. You notice as well, I put this light on the porch, so I'm going to build a little lamp to hang in there, and maybe just sort of gently swing it in the wind, when you use an animation for that, and that'll look really cool. And it just gives it that extra bit of atmosphere right there, and it pops, because we've got this sort of dark bluey sort of scene, and you can see this sort of area starting to sort of, let's just move that down a bit. It's starting to pop out, which is really nice. Perhaps a bit too much, maybe. Anyway, so that's that. Okay, a quick update. I managed to fix this window. It wasn't a big deal, actually. I thought it was going to be a bit more complicated than it actually was, and it was just my brain freezing, and I should have done it when we did it originally. So basically all it is if you click on your hut glass material, your smoothness needs to be around 0.9. Not, if you put it on 1, you can see this was happening before, which is not what we wanted. Now if you put it on 0.9, you'll see it flips. So the glass is now shiny and the dirt is now dull. That's it. That's all it was. So I thought I'd just let you know that before we move on, and I'll see you in the next lecture.